Hello, everyone. Welcome to Raw, Hard, and Real. I'm here today with a very special guest, Adaro. How are you today?
Good man, very good. And you?
I'm really good. Thank you very much for accepting this invitation. I'm really glad that you accepted because I was really excited to talk to you.
No problem. You're welcome.
Okay, first of all, I want to start with the Knockout Fest because you just arrived, right, from Australia?
Now it's Wednesday. I arrived on Monday morning.
And how was it?
It was amazing. I did as Adaro set in a room called the Oasis, and with guns we had to close the main stage, and that was a big honor. And it was like what I heard. I heard even people saying 65,000 people. So
Wow.
that's madness. I don't know if they were all there, but it was a very big party.
Okay, and how many stages are there on Knockout?
I think 3.
Okay, wow. So I guess then that the main stage was really packed.
It was packed, and what the nice thing was is that it's an open air stadium. So, for example, in Holland you have stadiums that are closed roof. And there it's open air. It's like a type of American football stadium in America. That type of thing. And art style there. And if you look from the side, because where the artist area is, you can see the side, and it looks like, whoa, we've never seen this in Holland.
Wow.
So that's crazy. Yeah.
Wow. And how many times have you been already in Australia?
I don't know exactly, but I think more than 10 already. Maybe
Okay,
12
well,
or something. Yes, sometimes 1 time per year, sometimes 2 times per year. It depends. There's a really good scene there.
Yeah, that's what I have heard. Actually, I just spoke like a month ago with Tosa, and we were talking about the Australian scene, and it seems like it's getting bigger and bigger. He's telling me that
it was always there, but it's getting bigger and bigger, and the different cities.
Yeah, because the Knockout on which city is it?
Sydney.
Okay.
And you have a big scene in Melbourne. You have a good scene in Perth and Brisbane. So it's now getting bigger and bigger in every city, and in Sydney it's really big.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay, so let's hope that it keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Let's hope they're doing a great job there.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you about the festival season. Since it just ended, the summer season here in Europe, how was it for you? What was like
Amazing.
the best of it, like funny parts?
The best gig was not in a Dutch festival. That was in September in Chile.
Okay, nice.
Chile. That was my favorite gig of the year so far. And there was a Adaro journey set, so it's from my beginnings until now, and that was so cool and sold out, and Chile, I really have something special with those people, and that was the best. And if I look back at the summer, I had great gigs at DEFCON. Decibel, Mysteryland together with Outsiders, Rebirth, Intense, and everything. And I forget, I had a fantastic festival season.
Nice. And talking about Chile, I have heard this before. I think that maybe because since it's a country that it's not that used to getting their favorite artists, like the people is more like emotional, I think, right? Like they give like 100% while they're being like, while they're there.
Yeah, the difference is that what you say, that they don't get often a party. So for them it's very special to go to a party. And the other thing is that there is a lot of poverty there, they don't have a lot of money. So what you also see, for example, is when you are in your hotel, people are standing outside for pictures and autographs, and you ask, hey, are you going to the party? Sorry, I don't have money for the party, So there are also a lot of people that don't even have the money to go there and still want to have a photo or a talk, So they are very, very dedicated. And what the difference, what I always say is in Mexico and Chile, and that are the only South American countries I've been to so far. But the difference, what you see is that in most of the time in Europe, the front rows go crazy, and then the farther you go to the back, the less they dance. And there you see from the front row till the last row, everyone goes crazy, and not only on the what's popular at the moment, on the raw, extra raw that's now hyped, on every track. If you play reverse bass or melody or classics or new stuff or the hype music from now, everything they like. And that's what I really love. And in a Journey set, I play everything. I have classics, reverse bass tracks, old raw, melody tracks, new raw, everything, and they like everything. And that's what I love, because I also like variety and I like different things.
That's awesome. And actually, that kind of set is really cool, because I think that sometimes, at least in my personal opinion, I miss like listening to the old songs of every artist, because they are just focused on having like the latest bangers. And since like most of the artists are releasing like a lot of songs each year, you don't get to listen to the old tracks, which are always good. And I mean, I don't know, for example, my favorite song from you, It's a Strong. And it's actually one of my favorite songs ever.
Yeah.
That's like in the top three.
It's not old enough to play in a classic set, but in a Journey set, I can play it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. It's like, I don't know when I would be able to hear that kind of songs.
I regularly play it also in new sets. I also play sometimes all the tracks in new sets. It just depends on what country I play. I look at what type of crowd is this, how young or what age are the people, what DMs did I get beforehand, if people request songs to me. Every gig is different to me. Every country is different. So that's how I deal with it.
Okay, that's good. And also, I wanted to talk a little bit about Mexico, since you mentioned it, because it's a country I'm from. So how was it? Because I saw that you were there on 2022 at EDC, right?
Yeah, that was in February 22. I've been there a couple of times before, also with Guns for Hire. I think even the, what was that? Azteca party or something in 16 or 17. We were really one of the first hardstyle acts to play in Mexico, and that was really crazy because we were like on the same lineup as guys like Lil Jon.
Okay,
and famous dubstep DJs, and we were there, and we saw that lineup, all these big names, from normal music, and well, they even gonna like us, We were pretty insecure beforehand, and afterwards we came there, and there was like a line of 1,000 people for autographs and photos. They all came for the hardstyle.
Whoa!
So that was really, really crazy. We will never forget that.
Okay, and was it on Monterrey? Because
I'll Google it for you. What it was?
I don't remember if it was Wish Outdoor. I mean, I have been living.
No. It was a complete party.
Okay,
I'll look it up. I know what it was. I know what it was and when it was. It's 7 years ago. I see it on YouTube now. 2017, Aztec Kingdom.
Aztec Kingdom. Okay.
Yeah.
I never heard of that.
Also a stadium. Was fucking cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
And did you stay for a little while at Mexico or not?
I did some other times, but not that time. Most of the time I go in and out. If I stay longer, I take my wife and make a vacation. But most of the time I go in and out. For example, in Australia, I left here on Wednesday evening and I was back on Monday morning. So 27 hours of travel, maybe longer with also the train here in Holland. So then you can see how long I was there.
Wow, that's crazy. And isn't that like, I don't know, it's like a struggle? Is it really hard to be traveling for that?
Sometimes, but I don't like to complain about my job because it's my dream job. So I always feel a little bad when I start complaining. Then I say, don't complain. I have friends who are at construction at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I can make my music here in the studio and play it in the weekend. So, and I get paid well, so I don't complain.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
and also I wanted to ask you about the festivals before we finish with this subject. Have you ever been to these famous festivals as a guest? And if so, which ones has been your favorite?
Which festival do you mean?
Any of the ones that you have played, any hardstyle festival?
Most of the time when I have the time, I also go there longer to look at other DJs and to party, you know. And also professionally, just to look at what is happening in the scene. You know, I always want to keep up with the new trends and who are the hottest DJs. And I want to, because if you only follow it online, you most of the time don't really understand why things are happening. You know?
Yeah.
And if I go visit the set and I feel the energy, then I can understand it better and see, hey, is that something that I want to do with this thing that is happening or not, you know? So that's the most of the time. For example, DEF CON is really also my friends' weekend.
Uh-huh.
So we go with friends in a house. I'm there the full 3-4 days. I'm there on the festival area. No VIP shit, just in the crowd, you know. And also with my friends, you know, we go to the hardcore classics areas and everything, you know. I'm from that time, so yeah, I like that. But on Decibel, I go watch some new Raw guys on Intense, Rebirth. You know, I try to watch what's happening in the scene.
Okay. If you would have to decide, like as a guest, between going to DEF CON or Decibel, which one would you go to?
I would go to both. I even get some questions. Yeah. No, that's politically correct. I understand.
Yeah.
DEF CON is like international party, you know, and Decibel is also becoming more and more international. But Decibel, I have also something special with, you know. It was always, you know, DEF CON is more about the decoration and the feeling, and Decibel was always about the harder sound. You know?
Yeah, the music. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what. Yeah, I like that mentality. You know, so I'm a fan of both.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have been to both last year, and this year I had to decide, and I went to DEF CON. But it's also, as you said, like I don't know, if I had the opportunity to go to both, I would go both. Like, yeah. I wouldn't even think about it.
I would, but like if you have to choose money wise, I would say go 1 year to DEF CON and the other year
to Decibel.
Yeah, and hope that the weather is good there, because that's the thing in Holland last summer also. You know, the weather can really make and break your party.
Yeah, like it happened on Intense, and it was a Dominator, I think, as well.
Yeah,
like this year it was hard with weather.
Yeah, so I was at a lot of parties where I was like, imagine if the sun was shining here, you know, how it's already cool, but how cool would it be then, you know? So yeah, it's hard for organizers, you know, if you have a rainy edition, you know, because, yeah, people are not as enthusiastic as they were when the sun was shining.
Yeah, and for example, this year, DEF CON 1 was perfect because it was really sunny during the day, but at night, at the morning, it was very cloudy. So you didn't have like all the sun in the tent. It was perfect for me.
Yeah, it was a lot better. If you are camping, that's what you want.
Yeah, exactly. So you can sleep a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I wanted to also ask you about Spain. I have seen that you come a lot of times here. I live in Spain, so and I live exactly in Madrid. How do you like it here? How do you like it, the Spanish crowd?
Yeah, the fabric is that Madrid. So that's unique, man. That's for me the biggest club I've ever played. I think it's maybe the biggest club in Europe, and it's getting bigger and bigger. They got a new area now, and every time I play there, it almost feels like my home in Spain, you know. So it's and it's growing, and I see more and more happening in Spain. We were also with Guns for Hire last summer in Spain. Was also crazy. So good. Only good things about Spain and Madrid.
Yeah, because I saw you played as Adaro and as Guns for Hire this summer at Fabric, right? At Next, I think.
Yeah. Sometimes they combine it. You know, they do Adaro, Randy, Guns for Hire, and sometimes you go solo. You know.
Yeah. And do you have like a package? Like if they hire you like both acts and Randy? Do you have like
I'm not negotiating about the prices, but we are all at the same ages.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
you can always try.
Yeah. No, I mean, and even for the venue, it's good because you just have to pay like for 2 people, and then it's Well, and the
For
whatever-
example, if you think like, hey, if I book Randy Adaro Guns for Hire,
that's 3 acts.
same flight, same hotel,
Exactly.
you know, like that.
Yeah, and 3 great acts. So yeah, it's perfect.
Thanks.
Okay, now I want to know a little bit about your story because I know that you started making trance, right?
When I started, it was really amateurish with in the 90s with hardcore music. And I
Okay.
learned more and more, got to know people who explained me a lot about hardware because it was all hardware. And the first track that was released was a real trance track, and it was a bit underground. And after that came a bit more, a track that became a hit. I did it with 2 friends, and it's called Freeloader, and we were called Driftwood. And that track went in the top 40 in several countries. I don't know exactly in Spain, but for example in Holland, Germany, UK, Austria, Italy, I think all top 40. And in the club charts was worldwide. So that was a crazy time. That was 2001, 2002.
Okay.
Yeah. And
then
I also, people ask me like, hey, you changed then to hardstyle. No, you have to know that I grew up in the hardcore period in the 90s, and then I was full hardcore, then I was blind for other music, only hardcore. After you get a little bit older, when I was 18, 19, you open up your mind for more music. And since then, I liked everything from soft to hard, and I still do. I listen to house music, to trance music, to everything. I like everything. So I also produced everything, and I would still produce everything if I had more time, but I only have time for Adaro and Guns for Hire with Randy. So
yeah, I mean, having 2 projects is really time consuming.
Time consuming, and keep your social life also on a acceptable level, and your friends, your family. That's hard to keep all the balls up,
Yeah, on balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you just said is really important. I think that you need to open your mind to other music genres, to listen to every kind of music,
Yeah.
also get new ideas. Because if you just focus on one genre, you're going to just make music like that genre. You're not going to get new ideas. So I think that with what you said, it's like...
I get a lot of influences from other music, 100%. And, I know guys who are full hardstyle and only hardstyle. They also make good music. But my way is to really everything.
No.
Yeah.
And how did you get into hardstyle, like making hardstyle? Because I also saw that your first songs were actually with Randy, right? Your first hardstyle.
When it went like this, I had these tracks with these friends, in 2001, 2002. And at that time, I knew we had our own parts in the team, I was the melody guy and from the ideas, and I know a little bit about technique, but not super much. And the other guy was really a technical genius, Ron, still a friend of mine, and Dirk, the other friend of mine, was for the beats, So we had a team with tasks that you were good in. But after 2 years, we split. Things happen, and at that time, I was technically not able enough to do it on my own. So I thought, hey, I'm gonna lay back for a while, learn the technique, and then come back and not be dependent on anyone. I want to do it alone also. So it took some years. Also had to find another job because, I had to make money. And I went haircutting in my father's salon. He's a haircutter, so I did that. And in the free time, in studio, learning. So I learned the technique in the next years, and the technique for different kind of styles. I DJ'd different kind of styles. I DJ'd house and also produced some house tracks with another guy, and also DJ'd hardstyle in our local club where I live. I was the resident DJ for the hardstyle nights. So they book a big DJ. I play 3 hours before and 3 hours after him, So I really learned how to build up a night to DJ. Was not only hardstyle, you begin with old school, then jumpy, then hardstyle. the famous DJ comes, don't play all the hits before him. The famous DJ comes, and then I play hardcore, so I learned to play everything. And at that time, the owner of the club came to me one night and he said, hey, a guy who is living in a village next to our village is also a DJ and wants to play here. Can you check if he can play? And I was Randy, and we didn't know each other, and he didn't have his breakthrough yet. So, he came to the club, and he made an intro, and he started scratching and everything. So I was laughing. Hey, I have to look if you can DJ. Yeah, I said, that guy can DJ,
Yes.
And we had immediately a good click. We started talking, and we both had a studio, and we lived 5 minutes away from each other. So, after that weekend, we came to each other's studio, started making music, and never stopped. And after a period, we also became good friends. You also see the first tracks were not super, and then came Under Attack, Struggle. So the longer we knew each other, the better the tracks became. So it's and like I said, that's how I know him. And the first ones were Randy versus Adaro. And after a while, we said like, hey, we're producing so many tracks together. Why shouldn't we start a project, to make a live act? And we were like, we don't want to do a live act with the DJ names and a laptop, We want to bring entertainment, something special. Then we had a lot of brainstorm sessions, and the idea of Guns for Hire came out with the masks, with the suit, and the whole branding. Yeah, that's how it went in a short way.
Nice. And at first, didn't you think about just being like a duo? Like just staying together? Because it's funny, because since you started producing with him, like at least hardstyle, it's funny that then you decided to go like on separate ways, but still you made your project together. I mean, it's good because each one is actually quite different, and you have your own essence. And being Guns for Hire, it's actually pretty cool. So didn't you think at first like, hey, we should just stick together, or not?
No, because we both also wanted to also a solo act. Randy at that time was already broken through as Randy. And,
okay.
It was from the beginning we are solo and also together. So I after those Randy versus Adaro tracks, I released Hit You With That Bang Shit, The Haunter of the Dark, No Time to Sleep, and then came Guns for Hire.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, what do you think about co-producers, not ghost producers, but co-producers? Because I think that nowadays a lot of people are starting to be co-produced by other people, and it's starting to become like a trend, I think, nowadays, or at least that's what I have heard. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, doesn't really mind to me. The only thing, I think the best way is always to be open to your fans. So, for example, the way Warface does it, with Remco on the back. That's the good way. Then you can always feel you don't have to lie, and you don't. The fans, they don't mind, So be open about it, and I don't mind. And also, what I saw in the past is that there are guys who are not right to be on stage. They don't want to be on stage. They don't feel like a DJ or and that's why I also can respect guys who ghost produce, because if my time on stage I feel like it's over, which will never be because I will go on forever. But if I would think like that, I would also become a ghost producer for a young guy or a young woman, So it's also work, You have to see it as work. Because where can you get your income? From bookings, not from making music. So if you start a project and you say like, hey, I don't feel comfortable on stage, and then if we only think like only the people who produce can play, then that guy who doesn't want to play, who doesn't feel good, cannot make any money, So I can understand he will look for a guy that is cool on stage and looks good and is good on social media, So I can always understand that also business-wise.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because I completely agree. I think that it was easier before, because before it just used to be like DJs were just DJing, and they didn't actually produce all the time. and there were producers. And it was like, not, I wouldn't say completely opposite because they were connected, but it wasn't like if you wanted to DJ, you didn't have to produce. And nowadays, you need to produce. You cannot just be a DJ or you just cannot be a producer. And I think that's hard.
A big difference, I think, when the DJs and the producers were producers, that was the time when the people played with vinyl. And then at that time, DJ was really an art, a profession. You had to be able to really do something. You beat match a track on your ears. That was work. That was a craft. And now DJ is easy. Everyone can DJ now. Only the thing now is everyone can DJ. Almost everyone can produce now with all these new techniques. Only the thing is now social media is important. So how can you get a reach online? How can you get your track to be listened by people? That's the most difficult thing nowadays for new guys.
Yeah. By the way, what do you think about that? Do you think that nowadays it's more important the social media than the music? I mean, the music is always more important.
It is, but I personally hate it, because for me it's only about the music. But I'm not 16, Yeah. And somebody from 16 is on TikTok and he sees what there is for him on TikTok, So you have to be in there for him to count. So it's completely different, and to me it's not a good development. But what can you do? You can complain, but then you are an old complainer. I don't want to be like that. I want to adapt. So I also think, how can I do something like that, or a little bit that I still feel comfortable with, because I don't want to be a clown on.
Yeah, no, but I think that at least nowadays it's harder for real musicians or people that are just like you, that are just focused on the music, because there can be like really great producers, but nowadays if they don't have like a really good marketing team, or if they are not good at marketing or doing TikToks or whatever, it's really hard. It's the struggle.
I completely agree, and it's fucked up. And I'm really happy that I also already built up a name, in the past. Because if I would start now, it would be way more difficult, because I'm not about the social media totally, A little bit. I have a good social media connection with my fans, but I'm not about... Now it's you make a track and you have to think, how can I make a funny video to get my track out there, That's why must we make a funny video, I made a cool track, But that's not how it works nowadays. Nowadays you have to think about the marketing, and that's really important. And also don't forget the importance of which playlist you are in on Spotify. How important that is, because they get released 50, 60 good quality tracks per week, and a neutral hardstyle listener is not going to check 60 tracks in a week. So how can you reach him? Probably he just checks the Hardstyle Bangers playlist, or the Q-Dance, or the Hardstyle Daily playlist, and he checks what's new. And then there are 5 new tracks, and you have to be in those 5 new tracks, and otherwise your track is old again a week later, and he will never see it.
Yeah, it's actually a struggle. It's really hard nowadays to get out there. And as you said, for example, I usually check it's Hardstyle Release Radar, and all the tracks that are released there, I mean, I'm not even able to listen to all of them. Also because, I don't know, if I like a couple of tracks, then I started to listen to them on repeat. But, it's also hard, even for me, that I try to listen to everything that is being released. But nowadays, there are a lot of artists, so it's really hard.
And a lot of artists are good producers,
Yeah.
They are sounding good, these tracks. So in the past it was like maybe 2 quality releases in a week and the rest is trash. Now it's all decent productions, sounding well, good tracks. A lot of potential hits don't become hits because people don't hear it, And in the past, other DJs would support these tracks. Nowadays, almost all DJs only play their own tracks on parties. So it's fucked up for new talents who make great music. And it's hard for them. The only difference is when you have the hype, everything is easy. You know, when you are the man of the moment, it's all gold and everything goes well and everybody looks up your track. But if that's not the case and you are a new guy, it's hard.
Yeah, that just happens to, I don't know, maybe 1-2 guys each year, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I can even think like 2 years ago it was Vertile, last year it was Dual Damage, or it still is, you know? But it's always like someone that it's like on the spotlight. But
yeah, you have like 10, 15 names that people really check because they are the shit of the moment, you know? And that's, and you know, for example, I really update my own playlist really well, Hardstyle Dynamite by Adaro. I do it every Friday, and I go to the new releases, you know, on hardstyle.com, and I really check everything. Nice. And what I like, I put in the playlist. Now, some tracks are not at hardstyle.com, and a lot of guys DM me, I got a new track out, so I always check everything. You know, I check the hardcore tracks. It costs me 2-3 hours per week to really check everything, you know. I think it's important to support talents and everything, but it costs 2-3 hours per week to listen all these tracks and update your playlist and the stuff, you know. So imagine for someone who doesn't have to update the playlist, who is just likes to listen, he doesn't go searching 3 hours for new music, you know.
Yeah. By the way, what do you think about the innovation these days? Because as we said, I think that there are a lot of quality right now. But I think that also there are a lot of artists that are sounding kind of the same. And you know that like...
It was always like that, of course. You know, a lot of people make the sound what's popular, you know. And it's the easiest way to score, they think, you know. But what I think, you know, now, because it's all about kick drops, then you get tracks that really sound the same, you know. So for me, I'm already a little bit bored with the extra raw stuff with some how do you call the word where? Let me look, because I don't want to say anything wrong. With some exceptions, you know. I like already now a little bit more special songs, you know, that have more than just a kick drop. But I also like a good kick drop, but only the real good one.
Okay. And for you, which are your favorite artists right now?
Vertile is really, really good. Disturb, I think. Hard Driver is doing well. From the new guys. I also like some Dual Damage tracks. You know, I think in this type of kicks, they do it the best. I like Skara, what he does a lot. Level 1, I think he's really doing well. Invector is doing well. Yeah, a lot of guys, you know. I like a lot, you know. TNT, always good. I'm really happy to see that Wild Styles and Noise Controllers are releasing more noise controllers coming back. Really enthusiastic I am about that. You know, that's important that those guys really keep pumping out good euphoric music, you know. So that's because everything was extra raw in the last years, but you can also say there was not enough super good euphoric music, you know. And Wild Styles Noise Controllers is super good euphoric music, so it's important that those guys keep on releasing. You know, Brandon Hart now with the Gladiator track, super cool. Randy hit after hit, you know. So I think now there are several things happening in the scene. You know, the young kids all like the TikTok hardstyle, you know, but also a lot of raw people don't like the new stuff, but they like the 2017-80 sound. So you get a revival of that a little bit with Regain, the Polish Punisher, Rejecta, super popular, Unresolved, and Nightcraft coming up in that style, you know. So that's what you see happening. You see a revival coming up in the euphoric side with the Jay Reeve parties that he did. You know, you see the massive popularity of classics and raw classics. So there are a lot of things happening now, and I'm sure that it will result to something good.
Yeah. So where do you think that hardstyle is heading? Do you think that it's going to become a little bit more euphoric? I don't know if that's
for sure. That's 100%, because that's the cycle that always goes. You know, we were now at the point where only hard was the thing. You know, that will stay. Maybe that will become their own scene. You know, that super hard raw. Maybe it will merge with up tempo because it has a lot of the same things, only
Similarities, yeah.
But, yeah, and I think that melodic hardstyle will also get its place back, you know, because why not? I cannot imagine that someone from 16, 17 doesn't like that music, you know. I cannot, and they only don't see it because they only see on TikTok the extra raw stuff. And that's cool, you know, when you're 16, 17, you want to go to what's cool and you go to the hype stuff, you know, and that's what's now happening. So I understand it, but there is more than only that, you know?
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to change subjects. I want to talk a little bit about the anthems that you have created for Rivers and Wish Outdoor. And I would like to know, like, what's the process of creating an anthem?
The process is that you get most of the time asked by an organization and you say yes or no, and then organization has like a theme for their party, and you ask about this information. Is there already information? Because you get asked most of the time after summer a little bit or in the fall, and the parties are in the spring most of the time, you know. So you get half a year before. You start thinking, and for me personally, it goes like this. I want to know the theme. I think about the lyrics. And then I start making the melody. That's for me the most important for an anthem, and it has to fit that theme and that party. And I make 50 melodies. I select the 10 best, and then I let it hear to colleagues, to friends, to the guys from the organization. Which one do you think is best? And most of the time, one melody, a lot of people will choose. And I like those 10 melodies, and then one will stick out in the reactions. And most of the time, I choose that one.
Okay.
And then I go on with production. And most of the time, it takes a long time because with an anthem, you have a history. You know, you want to be on the. Yeah, you want to have a cool anthem that people will remember in some years. So you take a lot of time for that. So to me, it's always 2-3 months that I work on an anthem.
3 months, okay. Like, what's your usual time creating a song? How? That
can really depend. I have songs that I made in 3 days, and I have songs that I made in half a year. And not only then half a year that track, but it just takes long, you know. But I think if I say like, okay, most of the time it's between 1 week and 6 weeks.
Okay, and for example, my favorite song, Strong, how long did it take?
That's those songs, because Strong is a cover song.
Yeah.
And those songs don't take that much time because you also already know what to do. You know, it's easier because you only have to let it re-sing. That takes some time, you know. We let it re-sing by a woman online through a website where you can find singers, and that takes some time. But most of the time these cover songs go pretty fast. So I think Strong 2 weeks.
Okay.
Maybe 1 week, 2 weeks. Yeah.
Wow, it's actually pretty fast. And by the way, you just
also Touch Your Star went pretty fast. You know, also cover.
Okay.
So those cover songs are because the melody is logical that it becomes that, you know. You don't have to invest time in making a melody. So that's most of the time, and everything sounds with Strong. You just listen to the original and you listen, what can I use from it, and that's how you make the break already a little bit, you know. So it's less time because it's more clear what to do.
Yeah, makes sense. By the way, you were mentioning singers. I would like to know whenever you work with a singer, with a top liner, how do you create your lyrics? Does the singer create the lyrics? How
it's always different. I have when I you can work with a singer or with a top liner. That's a difference. A singer, for example, with Touch Your Star, Bob and I really made the lyrics, and we said, this is the original one, but we want these lyrics on it. You know, she only did the singing. With, for example, the Now and Then with Aftershock, we made the melody, we made the lyrics, and we cannot sing, but we just said, sing these lyrics on these notes that we played with the piano, you know? But sometimes I buy a cappella vocal sometimes. My new song that's coming this Friday, it's called The Tunnel. I got offered an a cappella by a vocal company. And they sent it to me, hey, can you, is this something for you to make a hardstyle track from it? And I heard it and I was like, whoa, this is fantastic. Can I please have it, you know? Wow. And it's always different. I also sometimes have a singer here in the studio and we jam, you know? And then sometimes they write the lyrics or they write the melody. That can also happen for the vocal, you know? So it's always different. And sometimes it goes online. Sometimes it goes to FaceTime. Always different.
Okay. And what about collabs? Which has been your favorite collaborations so far?
Of course, the ones with Randy, with Guns. That's always...
yeah. Okay, so besides Guns for Hire.
Then if I think... if I look at what people do I learn a lot from, you know, I always want to get better. Mm-hmm. And what people do I really learn that are Hard Driver and Frontline.
Okay.
Those guys I really learned the most from, technically.
Okay. I actually just saw Frontliner, and I have always liked him, but he really surprised me. Like, I don't know, seeing him live, it was one of the best sets that I have seen so far this year. He's really, really cool.
Yeah, the guy is like, you know, I collabed so much, so I know all the guys, how they work, and they all have their own strengths and their own ways of producing. And some guys work on feeling, you know, for example, B-Front is really a sensitive guy who works with emotions and feelings. And some guys are really technical and know everything and all have 100,000 shortcuts for everything and you know, things like that. And working with everyone is different, and I learn from everyone in different ways, you know, and I like that to work with different guys and think different, and I get inspiration, you know. Also sometimes, for example, I tend to be too technical thinking, and then you work with a guy who works on feeling, and I start thinking, at night when I'm alone, I think like, hey, I should also work more on feeling, you know. So you get inspired because you see that, for example, my fault is most of the time, when I have an empty project and I start and I set out things, everything has to sound already a little bit good, you know? I cannot listen anymore to not good sounding sounds. So if I start with a lead, the lead has to sound quality already like it could have been a track. But I know guys who can just make super cool ideas with simple sounds that don't sound good, you know? So I get a little bit inspired by that. Like, I have to go back to that process because you work way more faster, you know? If you just can listen through that, you can make your tracks, build it up way faster than paying so much attention to one little sound and then the next sound has to sound good, you know? That's most of the time a problem that I have in the studio. So yeah, if I work with those guys who work way faster, I think like, oh, it's way better. I should do that also, you know?
Actually, one thing, sorry, that I love about hardstyle artists, it's that they really have a lot of collabs. And I think that that's the best way to learn from each other, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's and also what I really like in hardstyle is that it's also friendships, you know?
Yeah.
Not only collabs for business or then I can have some of your likes or your followers, you know. Also because, hey, you're my friend and I respect what you do and we have a click also outside of the studio because you see each other every weekend on parties and stuff, you know. So that's really cool. For example, guys like B-Front, Frequences, Digital Punk, Crypsis, they are really friends of me also, you know, level 1. Really friends, Frantic, a really good friend, Machine. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was actually going to ask you, like, who were your best friends in the scene, but you just answered that.
Yeah, and I probably forgot some, you know, I have a good relationship with a lot of guys, you know. And I only work with the people that I like as a person.
Yeah, that's important, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, I would also like to ask you, about your rider, and also what has been the weirdest thing that you have seen on a rider. You don't have to say from which artist was it, but just to know.
Yeah, in the hardstyle scene, I think there are not so much strange riders. I think
Okay.
if you want to hear these funny stories, you have to go to the EDM guys.
Yeah,
But,
probably.
and my rider is the most simple one of everyone because I don't drink any alcohol, and for me it's just Cola Zero, some water, and one Red Bull. That's all.
Okay, wow. Well,
Yeah.
that talks a lot about each artist. I think that's why I'm starting to ask about the writers, because it's interesting to see what each artist asks for.
Yeah, there is something to say for making a difficult rider. I know some guys put something really strange in there just to check if the organization has read the rider.
Okay.
But my opinion is like, I'm happy that someone wants to book me, so I don't need this strange stuff, and I don't want him to make costs of things that I don't use.
No.
So I don't drink alcohol, so why should there be alcohol on my rider? I always say like, hey, the people who drive with me and who are with me at the party, if they can get a beer if they want, that's cool. But that's never been a problem. Yeah.
Okay, Alara, we're almost about to end, but I want to ask you still 3 questions. First of all, which has been your best gig ever, like in your entire career?
DEF CON 2015. I think the closing of the Red on the Sunday. Still, I get messages about the set, and it's on YouTube still, and a lot of people like it. And for me, it was so one of my favorite because it went from light to dark, and I went along with the music. The more darker it gets, the more darker the music gets, and everything was right. The lights, the lasers, the feeling, the crowd response. I really had them. Sometimes it's hard to. There's such a big crowd to feel like that was it. And that one was it for me. And like I said, the one in Chile last year was also really special. And with Guns for Hire, we had so many cool gigs. I don't even remember. You have several climaxes, Defcon mains. Of course, the Legends set with Defcon was very cool with Randy and B-Front.
Yeah.
So every year new highlights come.
By the way, what do you think about Climax ending? That came up as a surprise for me this year.
Yeah, it's very sad. My personal opinion is that it's very sad, and I hear the podcast from the boss from Q-Dance explaining, and I can understand what he says, but still it's very sad, because it also is important for the scene.
Yeah.
So if that falls away, that's not good for the scene.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully a new festival or something. I mean, a new event, I don't know. But yeah, it's really, really sad.
Yeah, it's just sad because it's a Climax to me was not only the new raw style, but it was also the darker music and the cinematic music, was a different kind of vibe there. And it's sad that it goes away now, Yeah.
Okay, now I wanted to ask you, what kind of advice would you give to the new producers that are out there trying to get into the scene right now?
What we talked about, how important that social media is, but it is, And music-wise, I would say try to make something original that sticks out, that because there are so many tracks and so many good tracks, and everybody has cool kicks nowadays, and you have to make something different that is different than all the other ones, or have a really good social media.
Or do funny videos on TikTok. That's it.
Yeah, that also works. Not my style, but it works, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you have good music and you have like a really good social media, you can become a star. But it's, as you said, it's not like all about the music right now.
No, and I think it's getting worse and worse. It's getting less about the music.
Yeah, completely true.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm gonna ask you the last question, and it's how would you like to be remembered on the hardstyle scene?
Yeah, I thought about that sometimes in my career, and I just want to, have done my part for the history in the music. That there are several tracks that go into the history of hardstyle, with Adaro and Guns for Hire. But I think I already had some, but I want to make more, and also in different time periods. And I'm a guy that is in there for the long run. I will go on until I die, So, and until that day, I want to make music that does something for the scene, for the people. Just and have some cool gigs, That, but the most important to me is to make tracks that do something for the history. Because I was, for example, always fan of that hardcore stuff when I was young, and I still am. When I look back and I think about that hardcore, those guys that are really pioneers and that made the coolest music, they are still there for me, And if I can be that type of guy for somebody who is 15 or 16, then I'm happy,
Perfect. Perfect, Adaro. Thank you very much for your time. I really loved talking to you. It was amazing. And I hope to see you soon, probably in Fabric next time that you're here. I will send you a message and maybe we can meet.
We will do, 100%.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Show, and we'll see each other in the future. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching this. Please subscribe to my channel. You can see the little button there. Please subscribe.